Hello, everybody, and welcome to the World Cyber Arena Hearthstone Open League Finals. I'm TJ. Joining me today is none other than Dart. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward to a great day of Hearthstone. How about yourself?
Yeah, it should be a fantastic day of Hearthstone and a fantastic weekend of World Cyber Arena games. Today we'll be broadcasting Hearthstone, and of course across the weekend we'll have many other games including Crossfire, Dota 2, and Heroes of the Storm. At the end of the year, from December 16th through 21st, the World Cyber Arena Global Finals will take place in China, where players from around the world will compete in those 4 games for over $1 million in prizes. And, of course, you can see on your screen there 4 Hearthstone players advance. We saw Zalay and Amaz advance from the Pro Qualifier. And then today we'll see 2 more players advance. And, Dart, why don't you go over the Hearthstone side of things for today?
Absolutely. So today, like you said, we do have 4 players. Those 4 players are Chakki, Jason, Purple, and Brainboy. So today's format is the standard Conquest, which is a best-of-5 series where each player will bring 3 decks to the table, and in order to move on, they need to win 1 game with each of those 3 decks. Today, players will actually be competing for over $12,000 in prize pool, and the top 2 players of today will go on with Amaz and Zalay to the World Cyber Arena, where they will be competing for over $225,000 for the Hearthstone tournament.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for the Hearthstone tournament alone. And of course, today you said the top 2 players advance, but we'll be broadcasting all the way through the semifinals and the finals because there is prize money on the line. For first place, it's $8,000. So that's pretty good. And of course, you mentioned the players that we are going to be seeing today. You mentioned them a little bit earlier. Chakki and Jason, of course. Chakki making it through as the invite because he took top 4 in the WCA Pro Qualifier, which happened a few months ago. And then Purple and Brainboy are the other 2. Purple, he was top 4. He got an invite because he was top 4 at the Americas Championship. And then Brainboy, like Jason, made it through the Open Qualifier.
Absolutely. And let's talk about how the Open Qualifier was over 1,000 players playing in order to make these top 2 spots.
That's a lot.
Jason and Brainboy obviously are very experienced players, very skilled, and are very good at planning in order to make it through that many people.
Yeah, it takes a lot to make it through those Open Qualifiers. So these are players that we've seen on ladder quite a bit, and these are players that are up and coming in the scene. Chakki and Purple have proven themselves time and time again, and we'll have to see if these 2 players can match up. And then there's Chakki on your screen there. Team Dignitas, of course, with his Dignitas hoodie there, and getting ready to play. Of course, we saw him play in the WCA Pro League Qualifier, which happened earlier in the year in April or May, so that was quite a long time ago. And there's Jason on your screen as well.
So let's talk about these 2 players. Obviously, Chakki, unfortunately, he did lose to Amaz in the WCA Americas Pro Qualifier.
Yeah.
But by making it to the top 4 of the Pro Qualifier, he did secure himself the invite for today's tournament.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have Jason, who is a prolific ladder player. He's always top legend. He's always doing well in tournaments.
Yeah.
And he's someone who always he's the type of player who really builds decks that he enjoys and perfects them. So I'm excited to see if he actually decides to change it up a little bit now with the recent expansion that came out, or if he sticks to his guns and plays what he's normally attuned for.
Sticks to his style and his flair. Well, before we get in that first match, make sure you guys are staying in touch on social media. You can tweet at WCA_America with the hashtag WCA2015. You guys want to let us know what your predictions are for today, or if you have any thoughts about the matches or anything you want to say to Dart and I here. But let's start talking about that first matchup a little bit more. Chakki versus Jason. You said it, Jason. He's a guy that he plays in the Celestial League. He's a guy that plays on the North American ladder a whole bunch. Plays a lot of Druid, a lot of Warrior, and he just hasn't really had that huge breakout North American performance. Chakki, on the other hand, he's well known across pretty much the entire region.
Absolutely. Chakki has always been one of the most dominant players in Hearthstone. He's well known for his aggro type gameplay, but yet we've seen in the past that he can switch to a control type deck style, such as Freeze Mage, such as Handlock, such as Control Warrior.
Yeah.
And he can play just as well. So even though people do think that he's an aggro player, he's just an all-around fantastic Hearthstone competitor.
Yeah, and we can see on the screen there, his lineup's looking like it might be leaning more towards control. Chakki has favored Freeze Mage in the past, and even though he does play Patron Warrior, it seems like he favors Control Warrior recently. So we'll have to see what's going on with the Warrior deck. But the first matchup's locked in. It's going to be Warlock for Chakki and Druid for Jason, which is one of the decks that you said that he plays a lot. He likes to play the decks that he wants and he perfects those decks, and Druid just happens to be one of those.
But at the same time, this may be a slight variation to what we've seen in the past. We know that Jason obviously does love mid-range style of Druid, but we've seen kind of the rise of aggro Druid recently.
Yeah. This doesn't look to be too much like aggro Druid. Emperor Thorson, not usually a card that's run in the aggro Druid, so most likely mid-range. And Chakki going with Handlock.
I have to say that's actually a very interesting choice. Obviously, we know Chakki as a very prolific Zoo player, but we have seen him as Handlock in the past. However, as we've said, kind of the recent meta has been a little bit tuned down in terms of Handlock. There's so many aggro-type decks that Handlock can be a very dangerous choice to bring to a tournament such as this.
Yeah, it can be. And it has a lot of vulnerabilities and weaknesses, especially with the meta right now being so fast and tempo-focused. If you miss like a 4-drop, or if you miss, a crucial anti-kill bot or crucial taunt at a point in the game, you might just lose from there. So Druid is one of the decks that can capitalize on Warlock's weaknesses the most. With combo, they can, float the Warlock around a health where they're out of Molten Giant range, and then just capitalize with a Force of Nature Saboteur to end the game. So not the best of hand from Jason. Chakki actually keeps the Molten Giant, so that's an interesting choice, maybe hedging his bets against aggro Druid.
Exactly. So normally against mid-range Druid, you never, ever, ever usually want to keep Molten Giant. However, in this case, Chakki does have the intuition to realize that Jason could very well be playing the aggro-style Druid right here, in which case having the Molten Giant could be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, it's a big thing, because he knows that Jason is a popular Druid player on ladder, but most of my experiences with playing against him on ladder, he plays mid-range. But you can always switch it up, and Jason doesn't find any ramp tools. He doesn't find Wild Growth. He doesn't find Darnassus Aspirant. So a little bit of a slow start from him, and Chakki is going to hit his threats on turn 4.
Exactly. This is one of the instances that Chakki, with the double Twilight Drake in hand, can right from the beginning just kind of run away with the game. Obviously, he does have or Jason does have the Keeper of the Grove to answer the first Twilight Drake, but then he has nothing to follow up with it. He doesn't have the ramp that allows him to hero power it down, so it really just trades a Keeper of the Grove for the Twilight Drake 1-for-1.
Yeah, or in this case, potentially the first iteration of a Piloted Shredder, something along those lines. And
now, do you expect Jason to, obviously, I would have to expect that he's going to keep Keeper of the Grove. The question is whether or not do you think he's going to actually use his Shredder to trade into it, or do you think he's going to make Chakki make the trade himself?
It's kind of tough. I guess, well, he answers that. The one thing is you don't want to bring the Warlock down to Molten Giant range too quickly when you're playing as a Druid. A lot of times you want to sort of control their health and make sure that when you get to the point you can Force Nature Saboteur, you're not going to have to go through a big Molten Giant wall.
Exactly. This is, I would say, one of the very, believe it or not, this is one of the more difficult matchups for each of these decks. Yeah. Because as the Druid side, you have to play around Molten Giants, you have to set up a few turns ahead. So that way the combo, when you do get it, allows you to get through all the potential taunts that are up and finish the game. Meanwhile, as Handlock, you always have to play around your opponent's potential Innervate combo, potential Thorison plays, even potential double swipes to end it. So it's really doing a lot of calculation, adding up how much damage your opponent can do on the Druid side, and doing your best to play around that. Yeah, sometimes you get to a point, though, where you just can't play around it anymore. You just have to take risks, which, that's another tough part of the matchup, is knowing when you can play aggressively or when you can take those risks. And I have to say, I love what Chakki did there. He actually set himself up so that the silenced Piloted Shredder really does not have a very good trade on board right now for Jason. So it puts Jason in an awkward spot and sort of sets himself up so that he really has initiative for the rest of the game. Yeah, and even Swipe here, if you look at Swipe, it's so awkward because it doesn't clear everything. The Defender of Argus is still going to be left up on the board no matter how you maneuver around using hero power. So Saboteur is a good way to clear it without having to use that swipes. Swipe can be used as direct damage to finish the game later on. Now, because Jason does have the double Saboteur, I actually really like that play. It allowed him to clear the board. It allows him to play the Shade, filling up all of his mana curve. The threat, and it kind of puts Chakki in a position where, let's say Jason did have the Innervate combo right now, he'd have himself set up for lethal. So now Chakki may play overly defensive as kind of a response for Jason's move. And that could give him more opportunities in the future to actually come back into this game. Yeah, and Chakki, he's a veteran player. He knows when to play around things and not when to play around things. And
usually playing around Innervate combo after you've already seen a Savage Roar is not something that's within reason.
Now, Jason right away decides to pick up the Ancient of Lore. He wants to draw these cards. He wants to further his deck, so that way he can pick up the Force of Nature in order to try to finish this game off. But again, taking a look at what Chakki has, he's got an 8/8 Giant on board that he has the ability to ton up.
Yeah. He also has a Rag in his deck. It's been a long time since I've seen Ragnaros make its way back into Handlock. The last people to run it was probably the Nylum boys a long time ago when they had like the trio. Back when they were Nylum, I guess now they're G2. They used to put Ragnaros in Handlock a lot and in Druid a lot, which was always an interesting choice. And I haven't seen it for a while, but I guess it's Chakki's putting it back in his deck.
Exactly. I'm excited to see if that Ragnaros actually makes a big difference in this game.
Well,
now, Chakki has quite a few options this turn. The one that stands out to me would actually be...
I just like Rag.
Just kidding.
YOLO Rag, why not?
Chakki just wants to kill off that shade of the Ragnaros.
Yeah, if it doesn't hit it, that's going to be a pretty big deal. It does.
Gets it! Oh, that is huge. Jason is not happy about that one.
Not at all. And a risk there, but it definitely pays off. If that Rag did not hit the shade, it would have been pretty tough for Chakki to find a way to deal with that. Thorson is going to come down. It's going to hit some pretty crucial stuff. It's going to hit a Savage Roar. It's going to hit to both swipes. So once again, those can be used as burn later on in the game.
Exactly. And I have to imagine now that Chakki is at 15 health and he's facing down a hand of 6 cards that had been Emperor Thorsand, he's going to absolutely start playing defensive. He's no longer going to take those crazy chances with Ragnaros like this.
Yeah. And now there's a tough situation. He can play something like Emperor Thorsan and Taunt, but then he doesn't guarantee that he kills Jason's Emperor Thorsan. If you give Druid 2 turns of that, it can be really disastrous. He can do other things like trade in his Defender Vargas in combination with a Dark Bomb, and then like Void Caller and Taunt up. It's hard to tell which one's better.
I'd have to imagine that he wants to kill off this Emperor Thorsan. He's at the point where he cannot leave opposing minions on board. So I like how he realizes this and decides to use Dark Bomb to kill this off. The question is, which card does he decide to ton up, the Void Caller versus the Ancient Watcher?
Well, he does have another Void Caller in his hand, but really it's less health, and having a Void Caller come out of your hand on the board is not really impactful. Unless you also have another demon in your hand already.
And that's one of the reasons it wasn't the most straightforward decision. But I think Chakki does value the minion cycle through the Void Caller.
Yeah.
Now the question here is, does Chakki have potential lethal? He's got 5 from hand.
If he can tap into a silence to silence his own Rag, he does have it. Because he can silence his own Rag and Dark Bomb.
Wait, I think he might actually have lethal here. So if he attacks with both of his minions to the face, that puts him at 11. He can Shadow Flame his Void Caller, killing off both the remaining minions, and then Hellfire to clear off the last one, and then the Ragnaros will actually deal damage to face and kill it. So as long as a 4 health or a Divine Shield minion doesn't come out of this, it will be lethal. And he finds lethal another way also that works out. So it's Dark Bomb and his Ragnaros. This will be game number 1 to Chakki over Jason.
Really well spotted, and Jason does not look happy about that one. Probably not expecting to see Rag, but yeah, really well played by Chakki in that game 1. Realizing the risks that he needs to take early on, not playing around something like Innervate combo, and just finding the right moves to take game 1. So really impressive stuff.
Exactly, and that was one of the decks that he really was hoping to actually get the matchup. I think Jason was very happy when he matched Druid against the Handlock, but unfortunately for him, he didn't get the ramp he needed in order to kind of show of why Druid does usually have an advantage over Handlock.
Yeah, I believe he decided to keep 2 4-drops in his opening hand. He kept Shredder, and he kept Keeper of the Grove in his opening hand, which is pretty risky against Handlock. You want Keeper just to deal with that early Twilight Drake, but keeping the Shredder as opposed to trying to mulligan more aggressively for ramp cards can sometimes backfire.
Exactly. It's one of those risky plays where if he does happen to get into the ramp, he does have the double 4-drop in order to follow that up.
Yeah.
And then he would take board control, and Chakki would have just been behind the entire time. Yeah. However, unfortunately, as we saw, he just didn't get it that game. Yeah,
it's sort of a risky mulligan style, and it didn't pay off for him in this game, so he'll have to go back to the drawing board and try and find a win with that Druid against another matchup. But Chakki still has Mage and Warrior left, so Jason, if it is a control warrior for Chakki, Jason does have a pretty good chance with Druid, but that matchup has become a lot closer than it used to be. It used to be that mid-range Druid was considered really favored against Control Warrior, but do you think that's the case anymore?
So I would still say that Druid overall probably has a little bit of a favorite over Control Warrior, just based on the amount of burst that the Druid can do.
Yeah.
However, it's the Darnassus Aspirant that is usually a big advantage against a lot of the aggro decks, a lot of stuff like Handlock. It's one of those things that Control Warrior has a card that's very fitting for it. It's called Fire War Axe.
A couple, too. If they don't draw the Fire War Axe,
and for anyone who, exactly, that too. And for anyone who does play Hearthstone, they know that every Control Warrior has Fire War Axe in the starting hand. It's kind of part of its subtext.
Yeah.
Where Fire War Axe, if you have it in your deck, you mulligan for it, it comes.
Yeah. Oh, well, we won't be seeing that matchup just yet, but we'll probably be seeing a lot of Fire War Axe. It's going to be a Warrior Mirror matchup. And buckle up, Dart, because it looks like it's a Control Warrior Mirror. Everybody's favorite mirror.
Exactly. So let's sit back, get comfortable. This will be a little bit.
AFK 47 minutes.
47 minutes?
Nah, it's probably not going to be that long for a single match. But we'll have to see. Both these players have a lot of Control Warrior experience. I'd wager that Jason probably has more. It's one of his most played decks. But Chakki also, he does play Control Warrior quite a bit. He was one of the players to realize the strengths of Control Warrior against Patron Warrior early on in the Patron Warrior meta.
And here's a big thing that we really won't know just yet, but we see that Chakki does run double bash in his deck. Meanwhile, if Jason actually doesn't run any bashes, that means he has 2 other large bombs in his deck, which... Cool.
That's a Kel'Thuzad.
That is one of the bombs that I might be mentioning. So if Jason happens to have more big minions and have the same amount of removal as Chakki, he will have advantage in the fatigue game. However, Chakki, as we see, the Kel'Thuzad, if he can find a way to take advantage of that, this is going to be an interesting game. I'm excited.
I think Chakki might be running the Acolyte-less Control Warrior deck, which is a big possibility. A lot of players were experimenting with that early on with bashes. And you basically run Slam and Bash instead of Acolyte of Pain and Cruel Taskmasters. And that way you can still fit in big threats in your deck, and you usually win the Control Warrior Mirror because you don't have to worry about fatigue. Acolyte's usually a dead card in the matchup. So we'll see.
I was going to say, I'm really happy that Jason actually is someone who's so experienced in this matchup that he realizes not to play Deathbite on turn 4. It's so tempting in order to set it up, attack face, kind of set yourself up so you can get the Whirlwind effect and kill a Belcher. However, he realizes that armor is a big factor in this game. Not only does it allow you to do shield slams on big minions, but it kind of prevents a big Alexstrasza into Chromash finish the following turn.
Yeah.
So it sets himself up for the long game.
All right, well, we decided to play it on turn 5 instead.
And he, unfortunately, will be punished by the Harrison Jones in Chakki's hand. I can't imagine that Chakki is not going to take the opportunity here.
Well, he'd have to throw away his coin if he did that, right?
He currently has 9 cards in hand, so he'd go up to 10. So if he doesn't want to overdraw one the following turn, he would most likely actually use his coin.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Do you think Jason might have realized this, and that's why he didn't attack with it to kind of put out the armor? It forced Chakki to actually use up one of his cards?
I mean, maybe, but that's a lot of foresight to try and predict that type of thing.
And believe it or not, coin is actually a very important in this matchup, so I'm a little surprised that Chakki did want to get rid of it. It kind of sets up for the possible Sylvanas coin brawl, and as kind of an extra removal to take off one of your opponent's minions. But at the same time, it can actually steal that extra minion for yourself, which can be a big strength in the game.
Or the old use Bash to enrage your Grom. Or the old Ysera coin armor up.
Ooh, that's
classics.
That's next level.
That is next
level Hearthstone.
Yeah. So there are a lot of big threats in Chakki's deck. I mean, it would lead us to believe that some of those early creatures have been cut, like Acolyte of Pain, Cruel Taskmaster. Jason looks like he's running a very standard version of Control Warrior.
So here on turn 6, we see that Chakki is probably contemplating between either Shield Maiden and Sludge Belcher, but unfortunately it dies just to the Deathbite on board.
Both of them.
So normally throwing it down a 5/5 on turn 6 is a pretty good move.
Yeah.
Dying to half the card that's currently on board really doesn't make it all that effective.
Yeah. And so Chakki's just going to swing in with his Fire War Axe, equip his Deathbite. He might be able to take an aggressive posture in this matchup, but it's really hard against Control Warrior in a Control Warrior mirror to be the player that takes the aggressive posture, because you can end up overextending onto the board, you know, play greedily into removal, and then all of a sudden your late game threats don't match up as nicely because you overextended earlier on.
Now here I see two potential moves that Jason and I would have to be I'd have to imagine he's thinking about. One is obviously just throwing down the Shield Maiden. Because Chakki didn't use the first charge of his weapon, it forces Chakki to have a second form of damage in order to kill this off. His other opportunity could have been the Acolyte Pain Control Taskmaster to continue to cycle through his deck. But I'm sure, as you know, as I know you're an avid Control Warrior player, a lot of times you don't want to cycle through your deck too fast, or else you'll be the first one to fatigue.
Usually in Control Warrior mirrors, you're happy if your Acolyte of Pain gets one card. Usually that's exactly how it is. The only time you want more than one is when you know your hand is bad in the matchup. Like if your hand is filled with weapons, if you don't have big threats or removal, then that's when you want to cycle. But yeah, definitely cycling can backfire a lot in this matchup. And also, you want to be as greedy as possible with your removal in this matchup. You want to save until the last possible second.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think about Jason's? He didn't even hesitate. He just threw out the Big Game Hunter. He did have the Death Bite, which could have actually taken care of it, so he could have had the opportunity to save the Big Game Hunter for potential Grommash, potential Alexstrasza.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment on why you think he just did that without any hesitation?
Don't know. Yeah, that's actually... Maybe he's thinking he doesn't feel like he can take that 7 damage. But in this matchup, a lot of times it doesn't come down to how much damage you take in like the first 6 turns. You know, it comes down to how you maneuver in the later turns where you're just going to gain a crap load of armor anyway. So
could there be any chance that Jason could be running 2 Big Game Hunters in his deck?
It's possible. We saw one, he threw away one in the mulligan, and then he got one very quickly after the mulligan phase. So, I mean, that's all speculation, but he might be running 2. It's a possibility. It's kind of rare at this stage. Maybe he was expecting Handlock. Maybe the popularity of Secret Paladins and Aggro Druids led him to maybe put double BGH in there, but it's a tough call to make.
So we do see Chakki actually taking advantage of his bash in order to wipe this minion off the board. But unfortunately, because it costs 3 mana, it didn't give him the opportunity to throw down his own Sludge Belcher and develop his own kind of board presence here.
He's going to just drop the Ysera, and Chakki's going to have to, as of now, use multiple spells in order to deal with this, like a Bash Execute, something along those lines. But I think he picked up a Shield Slam.
That's the perfect answer for Ysera, and unfortunately for Jason, usually you can't expect to get more than 1 Dream card off of Ysera, but the one that you get can make such a big difference in this matchup, and unfortunately I would have to say that he might have gotten one of the least efficient cards off the Dream.
Laughing Sister. Now, Control Warriors do have a tough time dealing with Laughing Sister unless they have weapons.
Or even a minion on the board.
Even a minion on the board. Now that I think about it, nobody has a tough time dealing with Laughing Sisters, unless you're out of cards.
So I think Laughing Sister doesn't laugh at your opponent, just kind of laughing at you when you play it.
Yeah. I think that's definitely true.
So, let's see. Taking a look at Chakki, he's got a few options. Obviously, he wants to kill out this 6/3 minion. Could you see him playing the Kel'Thuzad here and regaining his 6/3 Justicar?
I don't... Oh, I guess so.
There it is. Is he? There, Kel'Thuzad comes down.
I was going to say, he knows his deck has a lot of threats. He wants to get out all the removal possible before he starts playing the ones that he really wants to stick, like Ysera. At this stage, Chakki can say, my opponent's Ysera only got 1 card. And that's usually a standard Control Warriors only late game win condition after Alexstrasza and Grom. So he's like, I'm going to play Kel'Thuzad, bait out an execute. I'm going to play Dr. Boom, get out an execute. And then play Ysera when nothing's left.
So Jason actually just valued his hero power more than getting out a second minion, such as the Laughing Sister, the Acolyte of Pain. What do you think about his decision there? Do you think the armor is more important than board presence in this matchup? We do know that it often does come down to fatigue, which could be a very good reason for that.
That seems like a place where Jason's just not comfortable right now. With Justicar Trueheart, it sort of increases the value of your hero power every turn. He might be thinking Chakki's playing a super grindy game, and there's just no way I'm going to be able to deal with this unless I take it to fatigue and have higher armor totals.
And we see it again. He just armors up and attacks face with his Belcher. He doesn't shield slam the Dr. Boom, and it looks like he's forcing Chakki to make the trades himself, which... that's the thing, is we know that Jason is such a prolific warrior player that he knows this matchup very, very well.
Yeah.
But some of these moves aren't very intuitive, and he must know how to go about this. He has to.
And Chakki trying to read into what that decision from Jason meant. Just passing, not using any removal. Does he have Brawl? Is he trying to get Chakki to flip the board? And he realizes that, you know what, maybe I should just try and protect my Dr. Boom from weapons, just play a Sledge Belcher, but not overextend too much.
I have no time for games.
So the Sylvanas will be a little bit difficult for Chakki to deal with. The majority of warriors actually don't run any silence effects. But at the same time, if he actually doesn't kill the Sylvanas himself this turn, he must be scared of a Brawl, because how the interaction of Brawl and Sylvanas, if Sylvanas wins, obviously your minion won the Brawl, but if one of your opponent minions live, then your Sylvanas will steal it. So no matter what, with Sylvanas Brawl combo, you usually come out ahead.
Oh, you always come out ahead. Yeah. Unless that minion had a negative effect. I can't imagine.
Darnassus Aspirant.
Sure, yeah.
Losing some armor, or losing some mana.
Yeah. Unless it's early on in the game and the mana actually matters, so... there was he can try and hedge his bets and say like slam the Ysera, or sorry, slam the Sylvanas and then attack in with the Sludge Belcher, and it basically is like a 2 in 3 chance to have a good outcome. But we'll have to see what he decides to do. He can out-train in his Dr. Boom, so.
And once again, he's just being very, very patient, just armoring up, attacking the Sludge Belcher with his one minion. So I think he realized that this game's going to go to fatigue almost no matter what.
Yeah.
So by forcing Chakki to actually go multiple minions into one, Jason will come out with the extra minions at the very end of the game.
But we talked about how Chakki built his deck. His deck is definitely built for the Control Warrior Mirror. It's not built for it, but it's better built. That Acolyte of Pain is not going to help him out. Jason, and I don't think Chakki runs it. Just based off the amount of threats that he's played and based off the amount of spells that he has, early spells like Bash and Slam, I doubt he runs it. So that's going to give him a huge advantage. Bash is such a better card in the mirror than Acolyte if you play Fatigue.
I was going to say, because we saw the Slam, we actually now know that most likely Chakki does not run the Acolyte of Pain. It's one of the, and the Sylvanas seals a Boom Bot.
Even hedging his bets against the Boom Bot being hit, and base for 2, that's probably best case scenario, except base for 1, of course, but, you know, not too worried about that. And the armor totals just keep getting chipped away off Jason, so that means, you know, that fatigue's starting to look grimmer and grimmer for him.
Can you imagine Harrison Jones against, you know, to start digging through his deck? At this point with the Dr. Boom at 4 health, he doesn't want to execute or shield slam it.
No, because you've already thrown so many creatures into that. That Dr. Boom's taken out a Sludge Belcher already. It's also, you know, helped in sort of taking out a Sylvanas because it was on the board, you know, as a threatening presence. But what are you going to find, to be honest?
It's not much. And
you're getting one step closer to fatigue. You know he still has a Despite left, so do you really want to take out the Fiery War Axe when... Probably the Harrison Jones, you want to use it more as a strategic weapon removal as opposed to a cycle card.
And he also has to be scared of the potential offensive Alex Straza here.
Yeah.
Because in Alex Straza, he would have his 14 damage from hand. So that would actually leave Jason only at 4 health. With 1 health with 3 armor. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, actually 4 health because the armor would get chipped off.
Yeah. Now it would make him really vulnerable to Grom plus any type of enrage tool. There's Sylvanas, another threat. Yeah. And so now Chakki is in a pretty good spot here. He realizes that it's probably a good thing that Jason threw out a removal on his Dr. Boom that already got some value out of it.
So here we see Chakki is going to go down to Ysera. And Jason luckily does have the shield block and shield slam to take care of this, but oh, we see another Laughing Sister. These things are just...
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's even now, so neither player can say that they won based off of, you know, Ysera Dream cards.
And the top deck of the Baron Geddon, I would have to say, is perfect. It allows Jason here to wipe off the Ysera without having to use a shield block and gain board initiative, which he's been fighting for quite a while now.
But look how many resources he used in order to do this. Chakki does get a BGH off the top, so that's pretty good. He does have a way to deal with the Big Game Hunter, or sorry, does have a way to deal with the Baron Geddon without having to use too many resources. And Jason's running out of
Is there trouble?
ways to deal with stuff. He has revenge, shield block. Acolyte of Pain's not what you want to throw out now. You don't want to use Grom to sort of start clearing the board.
And I gotta say, once again, we see a big game Hunter on a Baron Geddon. He had the option to use Bash and Slam. But for some reason, I think that Chakki really understands that he wants to get the 4-2 minion out. Not only, obviously, its effect is very good in clearing out the Baron Geddon, but it forces Jason to continually have answers for these.
Yikes.
That is not the way you want to use Grommash.
Now, yeah, especially in the mirror. Now his win conditions are pretty much... Oh, there is Acolyte of Pain. I have no idea what he cuts. He's got double bash, slam, so much top end.
Huh. Do you think he may not even be running Alexstrasza?
It's a possibility. And I don't know if that'll hurt him in this matchup. We'll have to see, but it feels like he's running a lot of big threats.
Exactly. We've seen Dr. Boom. Obviously, we see Sylvanas. We've seen Grom. We've seen Ysera. We've seen Pelthazad. We've seen Justicar. Oh, have we seen an Armor Smith?
No.
There you go. And
Gorehal off the top. Perfect way to deal with Dr. Boom.
This Dr. Boom.
That's
Does
convenient.
Hearthstone finally have an answer to Dr. Boom in the form of Gorehal?
Gorehal. If only Gorehal did 1 damage to minions to the side.
Adds the whirlwind effect with each hit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that could be it. Chakki may not actually be running Armorsmith. That's a very possible thing. And I would have to say it's interesting. And actually, I don't think we've seen Cruel Taskmasters either, have we?
No, we haven't seen Cruel Taskmasters either. Well, those Boombots.
Boombots.
They were out for vengeance. And I imagine just Harrison Jones. You can't leave that Gorehal up.
He must
That's a perfect target. Whoa.
He might be scared of drawing cards, even.
I guess so.
Or Jason loves to armor. I think he's armored up almost every single turn of this game.
He probably realizes that it's necessary if it's going to fatigue.
Especially when your opponent is actually at 27 armor while you're only at 10.
Yeah. 4 cards left in Chakki's deck. 8 cards left in Jason's deck.
I wouldn't be surprised just to see Grom and just hitting for the 10 armor just to knock it off. It forces Jason to actually have something to answer it. Forces him. Oh.
It's Armorsmith in Jason's deck. We saw one earlier as well.
That belongs in a museum.
And here we see the Harrison Jones coming down. I think he wants to kind of dig into more answers.
Yeah.
And also get a minion on the board, which is a big deal as we go into the late game here.
Yeah. So there's Shield Maiden. So I imagine Shield Block's pretty much a dead card at this point. Chakki realizes that this is going to go pretty far into fatigue, so that 5 extra health that he gains is not going to be worth the amount of...
He's going to Grom it. Grom coming down to kill this Harrison Jones. That's something that we've seen actually on both sides this game, where Grom is not used as a finisher, which again is kind of a very expected thing in a Control Warrior matchup.
Yeah.
But instead it's used as an additional removal.
Yeah.
Can you imagine taking the 10 to the face and revenge to kill this? I can't imagine that he actually wants to use his Shield Slam on this Grommash here.
He's probably trying to count threats. He's been through a lot. He's been through Dr. Boom, he's been through Baron Geddon, he's been through Ysera, he's been through Kel'Thuzad, which you probably didn't even have to expect to get through.
So I think the last card that Jason probably expects as a big bomb threat from Chakki is the Sylvanas that we do see in Chakki's hand. I can't wait to see like a Deathwing as Chakki's last card.
Yeah.
Just this one final, just in your face, big threat to end it.
We'll see. Alexstrasza could be another card, but we sort of theorized that that might be cut to make room. And there's the second Death Spite off the top for Chakki. Doesn't help him too much now. It does allow him to kill out this Sludge Belcher with something like a Slam. He can use it just to remove and not actually to draw a card. That's why he doesn't want to draw anymore.
That's what I'd actually have to imagine at this point. Chakki does not want to draw with that Slam. He'll use it to finish off a minion in order to not get the effect that comes with it.
Yeah.
Made to.
Well, you said Fireworks, when you mulligan for it, it's always in the opening hand, but if you don't, then it's always in the bottom of 10 cards.
Exactly.
Jason's armor total starting to get up there too, 17.
The question is, does it compare with the 71 health that he's facing down from Chakki?
Wow. Okay, so 1 Acolyte and 1 Cruel Taskmaster, it looks like.
So we know that Chakki does have 1 final card in his deck.
Alex Shiraza, perhaps. Second Fire War Axe, perhaps. Could be a second Cruel Taskmaster, or a second Acolyte, or a second Slam.
Yeah, he's running a lot of one-ofs. It's
Reno Jackson.
that.
I don't think so. He runs a lot of 2-ofs also.
I would love it to be Reno
Jackson.
Right before you fatigue, just go right up back to the beginning.
Yeah.
We're going to see, that's for sure. He is at 74 health. I don't think even a Patient Warrior could burst this down in one turn.
Yeah. Oh, there's Alex Shiraza. He's going to be patient with that. Might use it as a defensive tool later on, depending on what he realizes. What is it? Oh, it's a Shield Slam.
Shield Slam. He's only used one.
Oh, I thought he used 2 for some reason.
So I actually really like Chakki's deck. He's running 1 Slam, 1 Acolyte, 1 Cruel Taskmaster.
No Alex Shiraza, but Kel'Thuzad pretty much in place of it, since Ysera is running the standard list as well.
And no Armor Smiths? No Armor Smiths.
No Armor Smiths.
This is an interesting innovation on the new, or the very long time well-known Control Warrior deck. At this point in time, who do you think has advantage?
I have no idea. Jason has threats left. Chakki doesn't, but he has so much removal left. Yeah. And Bash. I mean, it's a pretty good card.
Jason
Use
is
a
running
little bit of
Bash.
removal.
So he is
2 cards left.
2 cards. So he will actually be 3 turns in, well, ahead, behind. I'm not sure the right terminology for this.
3
but he
turns
will be-
ahead, probably. I don't know.
There is a 3-turn difference. That's definitely, can't be wrong with that one. 3-turn difference between Jason and Chakki's card draw here. But Chakki does have the health differential. So right now we see about a 20 health difference. So that would be turn 4, 5, and 6 would be 15. So 5, 6, and 7. So if this lasts,
So Jason's going to win?
I think so. I think the 3-turn differential here, because we do see that Chakki has Sylvanas, but again, Jason can hit that off. He's going to have the Alex Strazza for when he needs it. That's most likely the time that Chakki... Actually, so here's the scary part.
Sylvanas is going to be the big thing.
So if Chakki saves his Shield Slam for his own Sylvanas, and Jason gets greedy with the Alex Strazza, then he has no answer for it. He only has the Bash in his weapon, so he will have to... Oh, double Bash.
Okay. Well, both players have 1 threat left. And Justicar. But Chakki is 3 turns behind. So with 6 armor gain on his side, 3 armor gain on the side of Chakki. Chakki also has the Cruel Taskmaster, but that'll get taken out by the Revenge.
I have no
And here
time
comes the
for games.
Sylvanas. So I think Jason, because of the 3 card differential he has right now...
Pain, speak to me.
Oh my god. He's giving Chakki his own Acolyte of Pain to make him draw further into fatigue.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
That is one of those moves that only someone like Jason would actually be able to plan and see.
Yeah.
And because he does have the Revenge in hand, he can actually make Chakki draw 2 cards off of it.
Unless Chakki just realizes that he should just kill off his own Acolyte here. But then he has to use a piece of removal for it, like a Bash. And that's probably going to be the difference. I mean, there are a lot of even health totals now. And Revenge is going to find a use here.
Is he? Oh no.
Maybe he realizes that a Cruel Taskmaster might... So now he's 4 turns behind.
Exactly. He had the opportunity to actually put him on 5 turns behind. But I'm trying to think what do you think is reasoning behind saving the Revenge instead of actually using it to force his opponent to draw that extra fatigue damage?
Be afraid of the Cruel Taskmasters? Like what they have the potential to do if they leave him up? Because the Cruel Taskmaster is attacking for 2 every turn.
But he
If
does,
he can't
he does still have
remove
the
the
Bash and the Alex Strazza.
That's true.
So he's probably going to wait until Chakki no longer has any armor and just play the Alex Strazza.
Yeah. Wish it was a fast forward button. Fatigue. I guess they still have actual decisions to make, so.
Exactly. I have to imagine at this point they're both calculating the turns. Or maybe Chakki's like, I have no idea, and let's just armor up every turn and see what happens.
Jason has a clear advantage now. You can definitely see that the armor totals getting closer and closer. And in just next turn, Jason's going to have more. So.
Exactly. Here, the patience shown by Jason is incredible.
Yeah.
To make it through this long game and to actually understand that maybe he doesn't even have to play his own big threat at the end. As long as he takes care of all of Chakki's threats and wins the fatigue war, he's going to take the game.
Yeah, I think that's Jason taking it. It's going to take us a while to get to that conclusion. But that's exactly what's happening.
10 fatigue damage. Is there any point of fatigue where the game just shuts off and calls it a tie?
Yeah. It's, I can't remember, 50 turns, I think? I don't know.
50 turns?
Maybe more. Well, Chakki realizes it, and he goes ahead and concedes, which means Jason ties it up 1-1 in the series. And a pretty intense Control Warrior matchup, and it felt like Chakki had the lead almost the whole game. And then all of a sudden it gets to fatigue, and we realized that the deck calls that we made were not necessarily correct, and Chakki just didn't have the top end to even that out. And that play at the end there where Jason forced Chakki to steal his own Acolyte may not have even made the difference, but if it did, then that was a big play.
Exactly, and when we were surprised that we see the Kel'Thuzad, we thought that Chakki may have had an extra bomb to play down and maybe giving him the advantage in that matchup. However, he ended up cutting Alex Draws in order to get that, so it really kept it about even.
Yeah.
And I really think that Jason's experience with this Control Warrior mirror and even the Control Warrior deck gave him the odds and allowed him to win this game.
Yeah, and now it's back to the drawing board for Chakki. He's got to find a way to win with that Control Warrior still against either the Druid or the Warlock, I believe, for Jason.
So we have Chakki with his Control Warrior and his Mage, which we actually do not know what type of Mage it is just yet. Against Jason's, we have seen we have his Druid and his Warlock.
Yeah.
Do you have any guess on which deck each player will lead for this following game?
Not really sure. If Chakki does have Freeze Mage, he can kind of be, you know, a little bit happy that Control Warrior's out of the way because he knows that that matchup is not going to be really too possible with that Freeze Mage deck. So I'd imagine he might just throw out the Mage, but there's also still Druid left, which Druid does have a decent matchup against Freeze Mage as well. And so if he's expecting that, then I don't know. It's tough to say.
Exactly. We know that Jason does have his Druid, which he would probably be happy against matching up against a Freeze Mage, obviously, while he wouldn't want to do it with his Warlock. But here's one thing that a lot of people overlook is this version of Control Warrior with the double bash, the slams, and the no armor smiths generally has a little bit more of an edge against Druid. I would actually say it's a very close matchup, if not even Warrior favored.
Yeah.
And so we'll see it right here as whether or not that's true.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. As we jump into game number 3, tied up 1-1. Jason does get Harrison Jones in his opening hand. He didn't keep that. He just got it after he mulliganed his cards away.
But unfortunately, he doesn't have the ramp necessary to actually really kind of take control of this game like Druids usually want to do against Control Warriors.
Yeah, once again. Yeah, as of now, he doesn't even have a turn to play anything until he gets to turn 5 with the Lothar by the Druid Claw, so... Keeper of the Grove.
Once again, pure power attack pass.
Yeah. Looks to be it.
I gotta say, for right now, I'm a little disappointed we haven't seen any of the new cards. Whether or not we'll see it in either Jason's Warlock or Chakki's Mage, I don't know, but I would love to see a Reno Jackson. I would love to see, what is it, the Flaming Torch.
Forgotten Torch.
Forgotten Torch, that's it. It's, even though only one wing has come out up till now, we've seen lots of the new cards on ladder, so I would love to see it in a tournament setting like this.
Yeah. And so Chakki here does have a couple options to do with this, but settles on the Death Bite, which will most likely get Harrison Jones. Oh no, that's pretty brutal for Jason. Now if he uses Harrison Jones, which he will, Novice Engineer will get taken out as well. So a little bit disappointing. But he does try to innervate. He does have Emperor Thorsan as well, so a lot of value in his hand.
Exactly, but right now it's the point where Chakki has to find a way to stay, not only remove the Harrison Jones from board, but he has to get some initiative. Is once a Druid gets initiative and obviously goes minion, minion, minion every single turn and follows it up with combo, that's where the Warrior runs into trouble. And this is actually one of the reasons that this kind of newer Warrior has a little bit better stance against the Control Warriors, because they have the cheap cards like Bash, like Slam, to potentially wipe off some of the Druid's smaller minions, while having the extra mana to potentially put their own stuff on board and gain the initiative back.
Yeah, to just help keep the board clear, to not let any smaller tokens survive, or something like a Savage Roar. So Harrison Jones not going to help Chakki too much in this matchup, or in any matchup moving forward, I suppose. But He does have the Cruel Taskmaster.
Big Game Hunter.
Oh. I mean, there's not that many big threats in Druid, except for Dr. Boom, where you want the BGH, I think, so I like this choice.
But at the same time, it could have actually just given him another minion on board, so that's something. But he may realize that this Dr. Boom's coming down. He knew it was coming, so this is a great time to keep the Big Game Hunter.
Why not? Big Game Hunter. Then he has to make the choice if he wants to try and trade into these Boombots now, hedge his bets, and I think that's going to be the choice. Does hit base, BGH, and then he can coin out Harrison Jones. Which would probably be a good play, because next turn he will be going into Kel'Thuzad turn regardless.
Exactly.
So he can start trading in his trading his Big Game Hunter into something and then play Kel'Thuzad, or trading both of his stuff and then play Kel'Thuzad.
So where this Boombot hits, I think is absolutely crucial. Obviously, if it kills off this Harrison Jones, it can be oh, and it does it!
Wow, that's crazy.
What a... Now, he has the option to either Wrath for and get the draw out of it, or he could have Keeper Grove to kill it.
There's like not that many silence targets in Control Warrior, I guess. Acolyte of Pain, he might not even know that Chakki runs it, because he didn't even play a single one last turn. Ysera, if you don't have a way to deal with it.
But we see here that his reasoning behind it is because he wanted to have the ability to innervate out the Charge Root of the Claw. Start wiping off that armor, not even give Chakki the chance to have a Shield Slam and start killing these minions. Yeah,
especially with Loatheb in the hand. As the Druid, you really need to take an aggressive stance, because your time windows are limited. If you let the Warrior have their way with the entire game, eventually they're going to get to those big threats. You're not going to get them in range to be able to combo them out. So now Chakki has to use the Grom Hellscream to remove one of these creatures.
Which will most likely get taken down with either a Wrath Keeper or Wrath Swipe. I think I like Wrath Keeper just because it allows him to get the Loatheb on top. But he does decide to actually opt for the swipe. And with the Innervate draw, he can still get out that Loatheb if he wants to. Do you think that's a move he'll end up taking?
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't have any combo pieces. So he might be going onto the board in full force a little bit early right now. Like playing a little bit too aggressively, but I don't think you have much of a choice. And Sylvanas, that's a big one for Keeper the Grove. So I'm surprised that he was conservative with both of them instead of just one.
So right now he's armoring up like he is just to make sure he's out of combo lethal range, which is understandable because he would be facing down 27 damage with the combo if Jason happened to have it in his hand.
Yeah.
While if he played the Sylvanas and just armored up and kind of was hoping, he would be dead to combo on board.
Yeah. Well, he does find Savage Roar, but still no Force of Nature.
It's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, he will continue to pile on pressure with these two creatures, though. Taking down Chakki's armor total, putting him back into lethal range with a full combo, threatening that combo damage.
Exactly, and he's hedging his bets against Brawl right now by only leaving 2 minions on board. But as we see, Jason has 9 damage plus 6 from Savage Roar.
Yeah.
So that'd be 15 plus 4 from the Double Keeper. So he could have 19 damage, which unfortunately not just yet is lethal. He tried the Brawl and it didn't work. It wasn't Armor Smith. I'd have to imagine at least one keeper. Double Keeper or one keeper? What do you think is coming?
I think just one keeper. I think you still have to keep one for the Sylvanas or something along those lines. Maybe as an emergency Ysera tool, but I guess Ysera doesn't really matter. So Keeper the Grove probably could have been played twice. You know Brawl's gone. Actually, think about it. Maybe Double Keeper would have been good because you know you're guaranteed to have creature stick if you have Double Keeper because of how much removal Chakki's already used.
But because even though we went to Fatigue last game, Chakki still held some cards in hand, so Jason does not know if Chakki runs Double Brawl or not.
Double Brawl, that's true.
So that may be one of the reasons he kind of held back on this.
I think that's 7 plus 12, 19. Yeah, that's lethal with the Keeper.
The silence and the double Savage Roar to end it. Jason will be taking game number 3 against Chakki.
Wow. And Chakki was controlling the state of the board early on, and this is why this matchup is still considered pretty weak. There are cards that help it, like Bash to deal with some of the earlier creatures, to clean up some of those stray creatures that are on the board. But sometimes your removal just doesn't line up. Sometimes you're stuck with big threats in your hand. You're forced to remove things to play around combo, but you just can't. And there you have it. Exactly that. Jason takes a 2-1 lead in the series.
Exactly. So now Chakki has to find a win with his Control Warrior and his Mage, which we still do not know what type of Mage it is. Meanwhile, we have Jason's Warlock, which again, we actually do not know what type of Warlock it is. Do you have any guess about what variant of Warlock that Jason may have as his final deck?
I would guess Handlock. You know, just judging by his other decks, he seems like a pretty traditional kind of player. Control Warrior, Midrange Druid, Handlock has been a classic, you know, 3-deck lineup for so long. And I would have to guess that. He could throw it up, switch it up with the Zoo, but Zoo's been pretty inconsistent lately against a lot of matchups, and especially if you know your first round opponent's Chakki. Chakki is one of the most prolific Zoo players of all time, so he'll definitely know how to play against it, and if he's bringing Freeze Mage is one of the best counters to Zoo. So I'd imagine Handlock. Do you think different?
I actually completely agree with you, but now the real question is, which deck will Chakki use first? If he is running
probably
Freeze
Warrior.
Mages,
I mean,
do you think he wants to do the long drawn-out game with the Warrior? Or do you want to try to get possibly a quick win with a Freeze Mage, kind of get the Warlock?
Oh, a quick win with the Freeze Mage?
No, I would say that Freeze Mage versus Handlock is usually a pretty quick game.
I suppose
either the Handlock gets out of hand with their Giants, or the Freeze Mage. Oh, guess we're going with Warrior.
All right, well, Handlock versus Control Warrior. Game number 4. Jason is on match point here. And what do you think of this matchup, Dart? This is an age-old matchup, older than Hearthstone itself.
The new Demon Zoo, I'd put all my money on the Demons, or not the Demon Zoo, the Demon Handlock.
Okay.
It used to be that Warriors used to have answers to every single one of the threats.
But now there's just too much.
Exactly. The Warrior used to have the threats to all the Handlock's potential big minions. But now it's gotten to a point, even the Void Callers, you have to use removal on it, and then a Doom Guard comes out. You have to use an Execute on that. Then a Giant comes out, you use the other Execute, then another Giant. It's the Demon Handlock have so many big minions that sometimes the Warrior just run out of answers, and that's when the Demon Handlock can just take over.
Yeah. Jason's been caught with a lot of banned hands recently, but at least he does pick up a Twilight Drake, so that's decent.
Oh. He actually decides he would rather have the 1 extra health.
Well, also, using the coin now means that he can't use the coin for Emperor Thor's hand if he doesn't pick up another threat. So he wants to make sure that he has something to play next turn, and the turn after that, and the turn after that. So it makes sense, I think.
But at the same time, it gives, again, Chakki another opportunity to do armor up, to make his Shield Slam another 2 damage stronger.
Yeah, that's true. I think at some point at the Handlock, you know that your stuff's going to get eaten by removal anyway. So it's just like, you kind of line it up. Like, okay, this Twilight Drake is an Execute. This Twilight Drake is a Shield Slam. This Mountain Giant is a BGH.
Now, I was going to say, if Chakki had the foresight that you mentioned where the coin Emperor Thor's hand was a possibility, he could have actually used the Shield Slam and then used one charge of Death Bite in order to set himself up to be able to kill off the Emperor Thor's hand if he gets coined out here.
Yeah.
But again, that kind of forces you to use 1.5 cards removal for 1. So it's an awkward situation. It's something you don't want to do. But if a situation comes up like this, it's one that you might actually be forced to.
Yeah, he does have Fire War Axe plus Bash in order to deal with it, which lines up pretty nicely. But again, it's that situation where 1.5 cards for 1, and also, I mean, Jason pretty much drew 4 Innervates also off that card, so it's a lot to deal with. And Void Caller, that's a pretty good draw because he does have like all his demons, I think, except for the other Void Caller in his hand.
And this is one of the strengths of Handlock, especially when you have someone who's experienced as Jason. You realize that the tapping, the damage you take from it is good. You want to be able to play these Molten Giants as soon as possible. Get them out of your hand, so that way it allows you for late game, if you get the Molten Giants out early, you can use the heal bots freely. You run into trouble later because if you ever forced to choose between let's hold off now in order to get the Molten Giants out next turn versus Healbot now to potentially save myself, that's where the decisions come in that are difficult enough that if you make the wrong one, you lose. But if you get yourself low enough, quick enough, and play those Molten Giants as early as possible, it gives you more choices to kind of follow through the rest of the game.
Yeah. Very true.
My shield for Argon.
That's a bit of an awkward turn, I'd say.
That's one way to actually clear off the Dr. Boom here.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of resources used just to clear off the Dr. Boom, though. Not even...
But here we see that it actually gets out the Doom Guard, which is very effective.
Yeah, but these Boombots might even just take out this Doom Guard by itself.
That's very true. Boombots always do exactly what you don't want them to do.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had an Azure Drake on the board that survived Boombot onslaught.
I think they just target Azure Drake.
See? Look at that.
There we go.
And now he can just play
Exactly.
Baron-Geddon. Yeah. He could just throw the Boombot into the Defender Vargas and then actually decide from there. Of course, it takes out the Doom Guard. I mean, now you can just slam in and play Shield Maiden and continue to armor up. A lot more options, so that's a pretty good outcome. Jason used so many resources to remove just a Dr. Boom, a Defender Vargas, a Void Caller, a Doom Guard, a Dark Bomb, all for one card.
Exactly, and unfortunately he's not getting the threats that really give Handlock the kind of the advantage in the early game. You need those Void Callers earlier. You need both Twilight Drakes. You need at least a Mountain Giant.
Yeah. The bright side is he's going to have those threats later in the game. So the removal is going to be spent on something, most likely, if he has the removal.
But later in the game, then you're kind of in Grom range, so you might not even have the opportunity to use a Mountain Giant. Otherwise, you could just die to a burst.
Yeah.
So it's a very scary situation.
Especially Chakki, if he gets Void Caller and Mal'Ganis out of the way early, he knows that later in the game, what he sees is what's going to be there. You know, you don't have to worry about killing a Void Caller when you have lethal and Jiraxis.
Oh, no! Jiraxis is not what Jason wanted to pop out. This is actually one of the things that Warriors always hope for, a Void Caller that pulls out Jiraxis, because if at any point Jason was able to get the Jiraxis down and actually use its effect where your hero becomes Jiraxis,
it's a win condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now he's in a situation where he can easily execute. Again, Chakki has to have it, though.
Yeah. Picks up Sylvanas.
It's tempting.
Yeah, but you take a lot of damage. But if your opponent doesn't have an Owl, shame he doesn't have Emperor Thorson in the deck. He could go with the Sylvanas Brawl and pick up like a Mal'Ganis or something. He can just, you know, like throw a Cruel Taskmaster into the mix or Harrison Jones in the mix now that Draxus is down and Brawl.
He could even hit the 9/7, throw down Baron-Geddon, and actually wipe it off like that.
Yeah, and Jiraxis would be down to 3 attack damage, so it wouldn't even trade into the Baron-Geddon. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's the safer move. If Chakki wants to do a play that can just straight up win it for him, he could always do the Cruel Taskmaster and Brawl. And if he wins that, oh, but he takes one of the riskier plays.
Bold move. I like it.
Gonna get punished. Here it comes. Oh, he's not going to be happy when he sees this Owl. The question is, how does Jason follow up along with the Owl?
Didn't look like he played anything.
Chakki just rolls his eyes a little bit.
You have to know at that point, Jason's pretty much tapped almost every turn. And Owl is not a card that's like a tech card, or usually it's a 2-of, or sometimes it's a 2-of.
No, recently it's actually been a 1-of.
Yeah.
I would say in the recent tournament meta, I don't think I've seen one deck with the double Owl.
Well, it's hard to include Handlock in recent tournament meta.
So we haven't seen it all that often.
Yeah, I think Life Coach, when he in his World Championship deck, he did only run 1 Owl.
But he also ran a Kazan Mystic.
Yep. So a little bit bizarre. But yeah, I think, especially with all the stuff you got to fit in now, it's really tough to fit in double Owl.
Once again, Chakki does have an awkward turn. He could attempt for the Brawl here, or he could do the play that was an option last turn where he used the Deathbite and Baron-Geddon the Mal'Ganis here.
Yeah.
And we'll actually set the Jiraxis to 4 health, so that even if he trades with the Dark Bomb, the Jiraxis does get wiped off the board here.
It's a Demon Spider Tank.
Here come the big guys.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to overextend too much because he hasn't seen a Brawl. Oh wow!
Oh,
Jason,
wow.
is this
Life Coach's deck?
Kazan Mystic.
We have to see an Earthring Farce here for it to be.
If we do see Chakki's Mage come out next game, if this
no.
goes to a Game 5, Kazan Mystic is going to be pretty big. So Jason might want to, hold on to that. You see a cheeky little smile on Jason's face. He's like,
yeah, exactly.
No,
I would
world
imagine
knows.
that if Jason is ever in a position where he's probably going to lose anyways, he would hold on to this Kazan Mystic. He does not want to show this to Chakki because that card, like you said, can absolutely change the following game.
Yeah. For sure. Chakki also has to be scared. He's kind of low health. He does have ways to gain armor with Bash. Well, just Bash. Hasn't drawn just Karchuhar yet.
I love how you say 24 health is low health.
For a warrior against a handlock that has 15 power on board, if those swing at him next turn, he's at 9 health. All right, this is going to be big, whatever comes out of this. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Now he has to expend another
Cruel
removal.
Task and execute.
or bash execute, but Cool Task develops something onto the board. And now he's not going to have anything for the next Mountain Giant that's going to come out on the board. And Chakki's just been getting the short end of the stick on some of these things. On the boom, well, he got good boombot hits on the Doom Guard. So.
Absolutely, but again, it's the brawl lost it for him. He had obviously with the Sylvanas, Jason happened to have that one owl in his deck to clear it off.
Yeah.
He was a good bit through his deck, but still, it's very disheartening when you take kind of a risky play like that and your opponent has the one card they need to answer it.
Yeah. Well, Chakki does get a good card off the top. The Gore Howl is going to allow him to start using his health as a resource to start trading into these creatures.
But do you see that card on the right in Jason's hand? That's a Dr. Boom.
But if he just plays Dr. Boom, he has to play a taunt with it as well. Because he's really low health at the moment.
Shields up.
There's the taunt. This is not good for Chakki.
Yeah, and Jason still has Mountain Giants left in his deck. He still has a Twilight Drake left in his deck. He's got threats galore. And that is Kel'Thuzad? Is that what I saw?
Yep. That's Kel'Thuzad, and that's not going to do it. The question is whether or not he can, one, survive the following turn, and two, find a way to come back for this. I
don't
really
think so.
Exactly. I don't.
Does Jason might even have lethal going into the next
So
turn.
I think he's going to hit the Boombot, hope it hits the Grom in order to kill off this Dr. Boom. It hits it. There we go.
Wow.
He found a way to survive this turn.
Nice little play. It'll keep him alive for now.
Oh.
Acidic Swamp Ooze.
This is like anti-Chakki lineup.
Wow.
Acidic Swamp Ooze for the Warrior. Kazan Mystic for the potential Mage.
Yeah. That's pretty rough. Wow.
Wow.
He's got Harrison Jones in that deck too, I think. And Chakki actually goes ahead and concedes, which means Jason is going to move on to the WCA Open League Finals.
And that means he actually qualifies for the WCA actual finals in China for middle of December.
Yeah, he made it all the way through the open bracket. He was one of the open bracket players. So thousands of players coming into this one, and he made it all the way to the end. Of course, Jason is one of the most prolific Open League players in North America. I put against him in a lot of open tournaments. I know I've casted some of his games in the past, so really well played by him. He seemed to tech his decks really nicely against what he thought his opponents would bring, and making it on to that finals. And
absolutely. Jason must be ecstatic.
Yeah.
He gets a free trip to China where he's actually going to play for over $200,000 for a Hearthstone tournament. That's incredible.
Yeah, and also he guarantees himself a little bit more money today, just for today as well. Of course, $8,000 for first place, $12,000 prize pool for just these 4 players alone. So really great stuff from him. But let us know what you guys thought of that match. You can tweet at WCA_America. You can also use the hashtag WCA 2015 if you want to stay engaged on social media. It was a fun match, and we have a couple more fun matches for you guys left to go today. But we are going to have to go to a quick break before we jump into the next match between Purple and Brain Boy. But don't go anywhere, guys. More World Cyber Arena Open League Final action continues right after this.